Hey guys, Steve again. Now, this is the final one of the saw sword. Well, final one for today anyway, I can promise. Well, it's just that I'm kind of getting into it, and I just want to share it because, maybe a lot of you are inquisitive to what the saw does, other than just cut a couple of beams and a couple of garden posts and all that they say. Well, I got perfect results. Now I'll show you here. I'll switch the camera around, and this is the conclusion. It's turned out, whoa, it's turned out great. Whoa, I've got things going on here, sorry. Okay, now, here we go. See if we can improve the colour a bit. Probably not. Now, look at this. Absolutely perfect. Now, you saw it before when I was doing it. Now, I'll bring this around here. Whoops, I'll bring it around here. And you can see you can hear it perfectly smooth. As you can see, no chip outs in any way because I've cleaned it up on the edge, which is all I have to do. That's all you have to do. Now the top, I haven't put any oil on the top, but I just did a quick oil. So what you've got is you've got this shape which runs through like this, and you can see it's crisp, and that's thanks to the Rotex. So I'm going to do one where see that band of timber down the centre. Now this is where unfortunately I've got to fill up these yet. These are where the screw holes are, where I have to fit on the sacrificial board on the back. It's all I'm hanging the thing on to cantilever out to do that cut. So this is only a sample piece. This is not the finished thing. I'm not going to use this on a table. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset those screws in such a way that they can be equal across the whole lot. So even though I'll fill them, they'll look a little bit better. Now, so I've got perfect results. You can hear it, lovely and smooth. I sanded out all those chainsaw marks. And it's, you know what, from something which has been cut by a chainsaw, it's perfectly square. Lovely and square all round. One thing I did notice that the clamps, I'll go over here, find these clamps. Right, there's these trigger clamps here and here. I'm not a real big fan of them. They don't seem to because they're pushing in this way, they often, no matter how hard you kind of lock them in and all that, they still tend to creep. So, not a big fan of them. But the trouble is, if I was to put down the normal clamps, they'd hang down in the damn saw, which is over here. This is the saw. There's the saw. And as you can see, this blade, it'll chop into those clamps. So you really can't use those other clamps. So I'm a bit stuck with using those clamps because they're the clamps that they tend to sell with it. But okay, now another quick little sample I did, and I just did this really quick. This is where I got a bit of jarrah, and I just did a freehand cut. So you got all the grooves from the thing. But have a look at this. This is really chipped out. Something shocking. Then one of the guys from my Facebook page said, why don't I put a sacrificial bit of board on top, but then cut it. Well, I just had a bit of MDF. I quickly threw it down underneath the saw plate. Didn't even stick it down in any kind of way. And I did notice there's definite improvement on the cut, except for these little breakouts. And that was because it wasn't stuck down properly. But now, and because this is the side which the saw goes on, so it's cutting up. So obviously you're going to get all this split out. But then if you turn it over and then you look at the actual undercut, because it's cutting upwards, especially in this cross grain, look at this. Now I'm going in pretty tight here. That's as clean as you're going to get on anything on that edge. This edge is a little bit ratty, but I did all this freehand. So the secret with this thing, using it for furniture making, this tool, is I think you've got to think about lots of aspects. Excuse me, my coffee again. I like to drink coffee. I think what you probably find is if you're going to do sort of different kind of cuts, you've got to think about how you're going to protect that top surface, if you need to protect that top surface at all. But if you're going to, like on here, where I actually cut away all that splintered bits and you know, sort of cleaned it all up, it's fine. You don't even need it. You don't even need it. Now that all sanded out beautifully, because this is a Vic Ash. It's a hardwood, but it's actually quite nice to sand. It's nothing brutal like Messmate. Messmate is, for instance, like it's really hard. It's like sanding rock half the time. So I'm going to be interested to see how I go on those ones. But anyway, this is going to work out to the type of project that I originally got the saw for, to making a particular table. And this just shows how you actually can get a damn decent cut. It's just a matter of trying. Now I've got to work out the distances that the blade is, because on this saw, I'll go around here, and I've got to learn a little bit more about the saw itself. If you look on the back, it's got 0, and underneath there and over here, 0. So that's obviously when you're cutting in at 90 degrees. Down in here, you see there's a 45 degrees and there's a 60 degrees. So these must be the reference points to which the saw is going to, the edge of where the saw is going to cut. So I'm going to have to examine that a little bit better and be a little bit more precise in what I'm doing, but I am only just been mainly testing. You know, it gets a bit of a build-up with sawdust in the saw, so you've got to be mindful of underneath different parts, like underneath this plate here, often gets built up with sawdust when you want to drop it back to 0. As you can see, it's not quite on 0, and that's because there's sawdust under there, which I'm going to need to blow out. So it's a funny saw. It's a bit of a love and hate relationship, and I kind of guess that it'll do what I want it to do, which is this. And you know, this opens up a whole pile of different things. You know, like I say, I'm going to make another top, and I'm going to put a piece of walnut down the middle here, and then I'll join these two sides. So when I make the next one, it'll be a little bit easier because I've got a different way I'm going to do it. But all in all, depends on sort of what kind of furniture making you make. For certain things that you can't, which is virtually, I wouldn't know how you could do a 60-degree cut on something like that using my table saw or my track saws or whatever. They don't go deep enough. I think it's a winner. It's an ugly duckling, but ends up coming. Well, it's basically like turning a pig. What do they call it? A pig's ear into a silk purse or something, or a sow's ear into a silk purse. That's what I think I've done. And by the way, I picked up these slabs for pretty cheap, so that's even a better bonus. So it's even out of the bargains bin. So it's made the bargains come alive. All right, guys. Well, I just thought I'd finish off the conclusion of it all, and the conclusion is great result at the end. That's the main thing, and maybe just a little bit of playing around. And any tips I get along my way as I do it, I will pass them on. Okay, see you guys.